Israel is the only country in the Middle East which has long anchored itself in the ideals of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. Canada supports Israel fundamentally because it is right to do so.
Striking words. Now, there were rallies in Toronto, Ottawa and Atlantic Canada last night in support of Israel. Thousands of people, major politicians were there, and so was Straight Talk contributor Paige McPherson. You do get around, don't you? You estimated, what, a couple of thousand people?
I would say so. At least 1,500 people in Toronto. There was also 600 people in Ottawa, and then there were other rallies across the country, including Atlantic Canada. So definitely a large presence of people out to support not only Jewish people, but people outside of the Jewish community as well, there to sort of get the update on what's happening in Israel and show solidarity with the Jewish state.
That's important to emphasize, because I've been to a few of these and counter-demonstrations against the pro-Hamas side. And, of course, the majority of people there are Jewish, but there are many Christians there. There are gay groups there. They don't get enough attention. The tiny number of gay people who support Hamas, incredible as it may seem because they're suicidal, they get a lot of exposure. But the other day when I was at the counter-protest, there were many gay people saying we stand out for Israel, all sorts of people, including people from South Asia, including people who are Muslims, saying this is wrong. The atmosphere, the feeling, the anti-Israel protests are very loud. There's quite a lot of screaming. You hear the occasional death to Jews, not a lot, but some of that, conspiracy theories, even violence. Was that replicated? I bet it wasn't. At the synagogue?
No, definitely not. I can tell you with certainty that everybody inside of there was only talking about peace, not death to our enemies, not we need to serve these people justice, just the fact that Israel and its citizens are getting attacked and that we are striving for peace. That was really the message that people took away. There were people who that message was resonating with as well and who were touting that message from different faith groups. There were Christians there, there were Muslims there, people who were supportive of the Jewish community across the board, and indeed politicians from across the board there as well. Particularly Marc Garneau was a speaker, a Liberal foreign affairs critic, and John Baird was also a speaker, our foreign affairs minister, with very strong words about how Hamas was the one who started this conflict. Hamas needs to be the one that ends this conflict. Israel is protecting its citizens. That's what every liberal democracy has the first and foremost
Sounds a good time for a clip. I wonder if we have one.
What has Israel done? It is exercising its fundamental right to defend itself and its people. Do you know, I think liberal democratic states have one fundamental responsibility. It's not a right, it's a responsibility to protect their populations, to keep their people safe and secure.
Support for Israel should never become a political wedge issue. When the citizens of a country are threatened by terrorists, other countries must speak up.
I just think we send a sign of a signal of solidarity to our friends in the state of Israel, but also to all of the people, including Palestinians, who are being victimized by these terrorists who are, in fact, causing injury to Palestinians and to others, and, of course, causing terror and injury and death to Israelis.
Well, we would like to thank again everybody here in Canada for the support we are getting at the embassy and here in our consulate. A lot of messages, emails, phone calls, and your politicians have been wonderful. The Prime Minister has been wonderful, so I cannot ask for more.
Livia Chow wasn't there?
No, I did not see her. I saw Karen Stintz, though, for anybody who's interested in the mayoral race. John Tory and Karen Stintz was who I saw. Definitely, though, across the board, support for what was going on for Israel.
Okay, I want to watch something. Very, very interesting what happened there. The statement made by the Liberal foreign affairs critic, I thought, was exemplary. But I wonder if it would have been made if the Conservatives were not as supportive of Israel as they are. The Liberals took the Jewish community for granted. They said they were pro-Israel, but at the United Nations repeatedly they voted the wrong way. Now you have a Conservative government, not for any ulterior motive. They just believe in Israel's right to exist. They've been very strong on this issue. And I think it's forced the Liberals to come on board.
It has, absolutely. And it forces the Liberals to every Jewish or pro-Israel event that they happen to be at. Their speeches, I find, are always prefaced with, support for Israel is not a partisan issue and it shouldn't be a political wedge issue. Something along those lines, both of which Marc Garneau said yesterday before he said anything else, really. And that really has forced the issue because people, I think that it's fair to say that in Canada, the Conservatives have been consistently supportive of Israel and the Liberals just have not been. Maybe that's good for the Liberals among other voting bases. I mean, probably it's a better vote getter to not be supportive of Israel in terms of the demographics in Canada.
No doubt.
But definitely it has forced the Liberal hand on this because when it comes to conflicts like this, and you were talking with Moshe about how different people across the world are getting angrier at Hamas, including other Arab countries, are really seeing this conflict for what it is. I think that it does force the Liberal hand on this to say this does kind of look like a battle between right and wrong.
There's a different conversation now. The Palestinians have a right to a state. I believe in a two-state solution. The Palestinians have suffered too much at the hands of all sorts of people, many of them Arab governments. The conversation now, though, is not about Israel and Palestine. It's about the West and terrorism. Hamas is part of a seamless garment that includes all the fundamentalist Islamist terror groups. It's part of that. Yeah. Maybe elements of Fatah are different, but Hamas is part of the terrorist link. They have to be defeated.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend who is a soldier in the IDF, and he told me that when he's fighting in this war, he's originally Canadian, he doesn't just feel like he's fighting for Israel, he feels as though he's fighting for freedom across the world and against terrorism. And when I was speaking with the Israeli Consul General last night at this rally, I said to him, how do you compete with an enemy like Hamas that says things like we want to degrade and humiliate the Jews before we destroy their country, things that are a nod to the Holocaust? How can you comment or have a peace solution that's long-lasting with this kind of a group? And he said there is no long-lasting peace solution with Hamas. Our main goal right now is to take out Hamas and have a long-lasting peace solution with whomever the government is going to be, and that represents as normal Palestinian civilians that probably want peace too.
Paige, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.